Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to the SightedMoon newsletter reading for this week. We're going to read it. It's called A Third. That's the title. Published on July the 3rd, 2020. And it is the 13th day of the 5th month. So the next couple days, we're going to see a big full moon in the night sky. And it's also July the 4th. It's Independence Day in the United States. So we can expect some news happening. Perhaps something big will happen in the next little while, according to the intensity of the crazy cycle as it was being reported. As you can see, the Shabbat Zoom meeting has to take place very soon, about an hour or so from now. So this is called The Third, and the subheading reads, First, Second, and now a Third. Does anyone remember the lead up to the ISIS crisis in 2014? It actually began in 2004. ISIL gained global prominence in early 2014 when it drove Iraqi government forces out of key cities in its western Iraq offensive, followed by its capture of Mosul and the Sinjar massacre. The group has been designated a terrorist organization by the United Nations. ISIL is known for its videos of beheadings, other types of executions, including journalists, aid workers. In Syria, the group conducted ground attacks on government forces and opposition factions. By December 2015, it held an area extending from western Iraq to eastern Syria, estimated 8 to 12 million people in that area, where it enforced its interpretation of Sharia law. Since 2005, I've been telling you that ISIS in some form was going to come to North America. In 2005, I did not know it as ISIS, and I did not know how this was going to take place. The European migrant crisis, also known as the refugee crisis, was a period characterized by high numbers of people arriving in the EU, overseas from across the Mediterranean Sea, or overland through Southeast Europe. In March 2019, the European Commission declared the migrant crisis to be at an end. The migrant crisis was part of a pattern of increased immigration to Europe from other continents, which began in the mid-20th century. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees observed that from January 2015 to March 2016, the top 3 nationalities among over 1 million refugees arriving from the Mediterranean Sea were Syrian, Afghan, secondly, and Iraqi. Many refugees, actually 47% were Syrian and 21% Afghan, and then just under 10% Iraqi. Many refugees that arrived in Italy and Greece came from countries where armed conflict was ongoing. You have the Syrian civil war, which is still ongoing, the war in Afghanistan since 2001, and the Iraqi conflict. So they were from those countries or which were otherwise considered to be refugee producing and for whom international protection is needed. However, a smaller proportion was from elsewhere, and for many of these individuals, the term migrant would be correct. Immigrants, meaning a person from a non-EU country, establishing his or her usual residence in the territory of an EU country for a period that is or is expected to be at least 12 months, included asylum seekers and economic migrants, or economic. Some research suggested that record population growth in Africa and the Middle East was one of the main reasons for the crisis. It was suggested that global warming could increase migratory pressures in the future. In rare cases, immigration was used as a cover for Islamic State, ISIL, militants disguised as refugees or migrants. Most of the migrants came from regions to the south and east of Europe, including the greater Middle East and Africa. Of the migrants arriving in Europe by sea in 2015, 58% were males over 18 years of age, 77% adults. Only 17% were females over 18. 22% are adults. Wow, that is a disproportionate amount of adults. So we have 77% adult males, and then only 22% adult females. So you can see they aren't integrating with Europe. The remaining 25% were under 18 years. By religious affiliation, the majority of entrants were Muslim, with a small component of non-Muslim minorities, including Yazidis, Assyrians, and Mandaeans. The total number of refugees to arrive in Europe, counting from 2013, when there was a noticeable increase, until the end of 2019, is over 5 million people, 5.7 million. During this time, the US and Canada took in tens of thousands of Middle Eastern refugees. Now, in this year, 2020, the year Daniel 9:27 warns us about, we see here that in the middle of the week is the middle of the Jubilee cycle. The last Jubilee year was 1996, and the next is 2045. The middle, right smack dab in the middle, is 2020. Today, across America, in city after city, we have seen civil unrest since the killing of George Floyd on May 25th. These protests have grown around the world. They have been the excuse for mobs to burn buildings and destroy businesses. They have attacked the police and journalists and bystanders. They have killed police and those defending their businesses or those opposed to their views. They are shutting down highways. They're shooting truckers, delivering supplies to those in need. In the lead up to the ISIS crisis, I can remember seeing videos of people in cars pulling up behind other vehicles and shooting all those in the car. Last week, I told you about Seattle giving up downtown to the mob and pulling the police out and letting them take over. She did not send in the National Guard. Seattle cowered in the face of anarchy. But this past Friday, Minneapolis voted 12-0 in favor of disbanding the police department. They too have cowered to the mob, and Ilhan Omar is championing this defunding of the police. This too reads like Iraq, when the military and police all disappeared before ISIS rolled in to take over the area. They cowered in front of the terror that came at them. This week, I am seeing video after video of whites being attacked and beaten in the streets of various cities. Whites being told they cannot travel down this road as it is for blacks only. Gangs breaking into gun stores, stealing all the rifles and ammo. And you all are witnessing the destruction of cultural heritage sites across America. And by the way, happy Independence Day to my fellow Americans. It was the same when ISIS began. They terrorized the Christians and the Yazidi people. Then they slaughtered them. They attacked and ransacked the army depots and collected firearms. And later they began a systematic destruction of ancient historical and irreplaceable artifacts. So here we are. Today in 2020, we have armed thugs taking over parts of cities and policing them according to their rules. We have Sharia police taking over areas and enforcing their rules in those areas. And no one has the balls to do anything about it. On top of this, you have COVID spreading faster than a wildfire in all these states that are reopening. And even some of you believe this to be fake and not real. And you will not wear a mask to help stop the spread because you believe it's fake. You have been victimized by someone else's propaganda, and the American nation is going down and will be destroyed. For 15 years, many have called me every name in the book for shouting out this warning that America is going to be destroyed beginning in 2020. I even went so far to say that this would begin on May 31st, 2020, using what I thought was going to be Shavuot this year. Here is what Wikipedia says about the George Floyd protests. The day following Floyd's death, peaceful protests began in Minneapolis in perceived response to both the police commissioner and police union leaders not holding Chauvin accountable for the murder of George Floyd. Protesters and police began to clash on the streets. Protests also formed in other cities across America with demonstrations each day. The unrest later escalated and the 3rd Precinct police station was burned down in Minneapolis, May 28th. At this time, the Minneapolis police and union, as well as other city officials, had not arrested Chauvin for the murder of Floyd. By June, protests had been held in all U.S. states. Protest actions were also reported in some U.S. immigration detention centers and prisons. By June the 3rd, at least 200 cities had imposed curfews in at least 27 states, as well as Washington, D.C., activated over 62,000 National Guard personnel in response to a majority of peaceful protests. In Seattle, starting in early June, protesters occupied an area of several city blocks after the police vacated it, declaring it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ, where, according to protesters, the police are forbidden, food is free, and documentaries are screened at night. On June the 10th, President Trump challenged Mayor Jenny Durkan and Governor Jay Inslee to take back your city, and implying, according to Durkan, the possibility of a military response. You can all go and look at the news for May 31st under George Floyd protests. And yet, there are still those who will not admit that we have the end-time chronological order of prophecy correct. They will not admit we have the correct understanding of the Jubilee cycles and when the sabbatical years are. They will not join us nor support us and are in fact still fighting against our efforts to warn even more. And they insist we are false prophets or false teachers, and they hold to their own end-time delusions. Leviticus chapter 26, verses 23 to 29. When people are killing others and beating them because of their race, that soon becomes ethnic cleansing. We can see that in South Africa, actually, right now, the white farmers. Jehovah has been telling us over and over how he's going to take Israel, all 12 tribes, and wipe them out and destroy them from off the face of the earth, except for a small remnant. And we have shown you in our videos exactly who those people are in these last days. It's not about race or one race being superior to another. It is about Jehovah punishing a people who did not obey him, even though he blessed them above all others. Isaiah 14, verse 1, and Isaiah 56, verses 6 to 8, Ephesians 2, 12 to 19. To be a part of Israel, all you have to do is obey. But these curses are coming upon the DNA descendants of the 12 tribes who would not obey. They are basically the Anglo-Saxon peoples. If the Black Hebrews are in fact the true Israelite tribes, as they claim, then I am all in for it, because these curses then will go and fall on them and not my race. It will be the blacks that will be wiped out. But I cannot say that because it is a lie. The 12 tribes of Israel can be found in the nations that come from the United Kingdom. They are the ones that have been blessed more than any other in the history of the world, which proves Jehovah has kept his promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is these same Anglo-Saxon people who are now going to be destroyed for not obeying Jehovah. Daniel 9, verses 24 to 26. From the time that Moses was told to go and get the people of Israel, when the 50th Jubilee cycle had just ended, you are told to count 7 Jubilee cycles. And after the 7th Jubilee cycle, Messiah the Prince would arrive. This was the time when King David came on the world scene and was anointed by Samuel and then by Judah when they made him king, and then by all of Israel 7 years later. Then the prophecy says that after David arrives, there would be 62 more Jubilee cycles, and this would bring you to the year 1996, which was the last Jubilee. That same sentence is telling you that King David is going to be brought back to life in this 70th Jubilee cycle. So this whole sentence is speaking about King David. He is about to come again on Shavuot at the end of the Great Tribulation. Know and understand. Verse 26, now you get to think, why would Jehovah bring David back to kill him again? Why would he be cut off? He is not. What were these verses about? The word Messiah in verse 26 again is anointed. It just means anointed the same as David was his anointed, only this anointed in verse 26 is speaking to another anointed of Jehovah, and that is all of Israel. The subject of these 4 verses, Israel is the anointed of Jehovah, the apple of his eye. 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verses 14 to 22, Psalm 105, verses 7 to 15. It is Israel, all 12 tribes in these last days, that is about to be cut off, as you are told in Daniel 9, verse 26. When you read the Hebrew words for the expression shall be cut off, but not for himself, it is actually telling you that they will be as if they never were. That is how bad the cutting off is going to be. They will be utterly and totally annihilated. Actually, I noticed that in the Septuagint as well. When it says cut off, it means destroyed. The apple of his eye is about to be completely destroyed, except for a remnant. Since 2005, we have been telling you this same story over and over. We have explained the Jubilee cycles. We have given you the charts so you can see the Jubilee cycles. We have shown you that we are in the 120th Jubilee cycle, and we have shown you in these charts, in those charts, how to count the 70 weeks to know and understand we are in that final 70th week now. We have been rejected by those with large followings. We have been turned away by many of the major Christian news outlets and radio shows. We have been called false prophets by Christians and those who claim to be brethren alike. We have had to work a full-time job all these 15 years to pay for the cost of getting this message out to you. We have had some help along the way, and more are helping now. And I just want to add that even during the times of the prophets, they were unpopular and they were rejected by most. And they were also called false because people didn't want to hear the truth. It was bad news. They wanted to hear pleasant things. Continuing on, we have written books to explain these things in detail and sent those books to many religious leaders and even heads of countries, even the president, and to all the first family. We have created videos and continue to do so in the hopes that the more we refine our message, the greater the chance we can reach still more and help them to repent, to return to Jehovah and his covenant. We have now found 89 sabbatical and jubilee historical facts and artifacts that all collaborate and confirm, or I should say corroborate, and confirm when each and every sabbatical and jubilee year was throughout the 6 millennial days of men. Those of you who have done your homework have also proven this to yourselves, and it is now your teaching and not just mine. I have suffered the abuses of Christians who would not listen. I have suffered the abuses of brethren who claim to follow Jehovah. I have suffered the abuses of those that called me a friend, and I have suffered, as many of you have, the loss of my entire family, all in order to bring you this warning that in 2020 it was going to begin, and that it was going to last for 6.25 years before the annihilation was complete. Then this year, on the very day we kept Passover on March 10th, 2020, the WHO declared a worldwide pandemic. People still would not believe us. Then the week before our Shavuot on May the 3rd, 2020, the UN warned of a biblical-sized famine of 135 million people in 3 months' time unless immediate action was taken. People still did not believe us. Then that very same week, North American food processing plants began to shut down due to the spread of COVID, and truckers are now called heroes for delivering food and supplies to the city. People still would not believe. On May the 3rd, 2020, I presented a revised teaching on the 2300 Days of Hell. I still was waiting to see what would happen on May 31st, but the number said something was potentially coming on July the 5th, 2020. That's tomorrow. As of this post, that video had 1,721 views. On May 25th, 2020, we hosted an interview with Cyrus Harding, a believer who goes by the crescent moon, SightedMoon, who stunned us, first of all, with his lunar cycle predictions that came true for COVID and the oil price crash that had taken place this past winter. Although not 100% correct in all things, as so close it was scary. As to how close it was scary. Okay, I'm not sure how to word that. He warned us on that broadcast what was about to come during the next month and into August 2020. He called it the crazy cycle, and he nailed it spot on. Cyrus also warned us of the July 5th date, but was not sure what was going to happen. On July 5th, 2020, Israel is going to annex Samaria, or what the West calls the West Bank. The EU is warning against it, and Jordan is also warning against it. Again, as of this post, this video had 1,620 views. Then after the death of Floyd, with the riots growing daily after May 25th, and the date we said was May 31, the very day we have been warning you about since 2005, the world has become a scary place. I'm going to say it's become a crazier place. It wasn't crazy already. Rioting, looting, calls to defund the police, thugs taking over parts of large cities. Brethren were ridiculing me, saying, "Where was the destruction of the USA?" They mocked us, and they still didn't believe. It's not me they are not believing. It is not me they are mocking. It's not me they ridicule. It is Jehovah they mock. 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 and 4. They go about joking about us, thinking they are saved by their own understanding. By their works, you can see they do not do anything to further the kingdom, but accuse those who are. Revelation chapter 3, verses 14 to 22. This past week, I heard Cyrus Harding had done a study on the lunar cycles once again and was stunned to discover that there was a super cycle starting this fall, October 18, which I think is around Tabernacles, if not after, and going until February the 14th, 2021, and that's right before Passover. And he said it was going to peak in November. That's the election. Cyrus also said, the American one, Cyrus also said the super cycle was very unusual because it started in the intensity of almost 70%, whereas many others begin around 10 to 20% and grow to a peak. This one was already starting out full on at 68.747%. We had Cyrus come on our broadcast on Monday evening, and he told us that this super cycle is going all the way up in intensity to 88.996% by the end of November. So after the election is done, probably, is going to win, and start of December, which really concerned him. He was not sure what it was about, but speculated it could be about the stock market. So a win by from Mr. Biden there, I don't think it'll be a crazy reaction, but you can bet a re-election win would cause massive rage and unrest and protesting from those who do not support the president. In our conversation with Cyrus, we discussed that the Paris Accord was being dissolved by America as of November. We also told him that Brexit was complete on December 31 this year. We also said they expected COVID, a second wave, to be in full swing about that time. There's also the fact the American election is on November 3rd, and either a Biden or Trump win, there could be war. But by the end of the broadcast, and I suggest you watch it, it's very good, especially regarding prepping and other things. We did not know for sure what it was, but that something big was coming, something very big. This video has already received 600 views just 24 hours later, so over 600 views. Last week, I had a lady call me in tears and almost hysteric from South Africa. She was frantic to speak to me about her visions. Once I knew what she wanted to talk to me about, I rolled my eyes but could not get out of the call. She had just watched one of our Shabbat services, and it was the one where one of the ladies described her dream, a dream she had about me being killed in the future. She too had had the same dream but did not know who I was or the things I teach. After I calmed her down, I told her she had to start keeping the holy days and the Sabbath, and if she did that, then Jehovah would take care of the rest. But she had to begin doing this at a minimum. She agreed. As many of you know, I loathe those who claim they had a dream from Jehovah last night, and they have a need to tell me all the intricate details. I don't give them the light of day. Having said that, there have been a few people that have told me their dreams, and they had merit. I also had a dream that I considered something to keep in mind. I have mentioned these in my books. In the past, I have seen brethren go gaga over those who claim to have dreams and visions. Those videos would get thousands and hundreds of thousands of views, while our message, which could be confirmed with the scriptures, get only hundreds of views. This always bothered me. People preferred things that you could not prove with the scripture over things that you could. The tickling of the ears. Tuesday, June 30th, 2020, I was told to watch this video. I had been sent the same video and a transcript of it by at least 24 people in the past 5 days since it came out. They all said to watch it. I deleted every single one. If you don't have time to explain why I need to watch it, I don't have the time to waste on every silly idea that pops into people's brains. But once I learned this person had a dream, then I was for sure not wasting my time with it. Then late Tuesday afternoon, just before I met with our team working on the Philippine Foundation, an old friend told me why I should watch it and that I should contact the person because I had the answers he was asking about. So I sat and watched it. I watched it with Cyrus's teaching in my head from the day before. I watched it with my own understanding of the time we are in and that I am currently waiting for Europe to invade the Middle East before or at the same time that the USA is attacked or invaded, and this destruction of Israel, US, and UK gets ramped up to a higher level, like what Cyrus was indicating. I watched it, and I was sobered. If you have not watched our videos, then I'm going to stop this newsletter and not make it a long one. I want you to watch the following 2 videos we did with Cyrus, and then I want you to watch the dream video third. Even if you say you already saw them, please review them and then watch the third one. I did call this man after, and I will write him at his request tomorrow. So you have that video and the one that just took place this week. In the 5 hours since I saw this video, it has shot up from 305,000 views to 380,000 views. No scriptures to confirm anything he has said, and it comes from someone who is not keeping the Sabbath or the holy days. Does Jehovah send messages through those who are not obeying him? That's the end of the newsletter. I'm just going to read the comments now. So someone said, would Jehovah use those who are not obeying him? And he did use people like the butler and the baker of Pharaoh himself and Nebuchadnezzar, giving them dreams concerning future events, and none were obeying Jehovah, at least from what we read in the biblical account. Okay, let me just read this on my own. Okay, so yeah, he did use Balaam's talking donkey, and this person makes a point here that the principle for unearthing truth is to play the ball, not play the player. He's not a respecter of men, so Jehovah can use really anybody. That is a truth, he can. Although I do have to admit, if you do obey him, there is a greater blessing upon you. You can't say you represent Jehovah and live like a demon. You can't live like a fiend. So he does speak through those, not keeping his ways. Having problems with the messenger says a lot more about the individual receiving the message than it does about the content of the message. So Balaam, a false prophet, also prophesied concerning the Messiah. And yeah, so Pilate's wife also warned her husband as well. So that's the end of the newsletter. I'm going to upload this now, and there's still time for people to watch it before the Zoom meeting that takes place. So Shabbat Shalom to you. Jehovah bless you and make your way prosperous. This is the SightedMoon newsletter for this week of July the 3rd, July the 4th, 2020, the 13th day of the 5th month of the year 5856.